welcome to my channel, and today we are continuing the talk of Final Destination with Final Destination 2. If you have not seen my review for the first Final Destination, I will leave a link in the description below so that you can check that out. There will also be a playlist for this whole entire franchise review. But before we get into the review, I do want to give a quick shout out to my Patreons. Thank you guys so much for helping to contribute to the channel. It means the absolute world to me. If you want to know the perks to being a Patreon, the links are in the description below, along with all of my other social media. So feel free to check all that out, and let's just go ahead and get into Final Destination 2.
Kimberly, look at me.
Oh my god.
What did you see?
There's gonna be a huge accident. Everybody's gonna die.
Being alive after we were supposed to die, it caused a rift in Death's design.
So this movie came out in 2003, which is 3 years after the original, but it is based a year after the events of Flight 180. And at the end of the first Final Destination, you don't really know Alex or Claire's fate. It's kind of up in the air what happens to them. You kind of know that death is obviously still out to get them. So at the beginning of Final Destination 2, you're actually greeted with a whole new set of characters. Our main character, Kimberly, who is actually played by AJ Cook. Some of you will recognize her from A Criminal Minds. She plays JJ on there. So if you've watched that and you're wondering where you recognize her from, that would be it. It took me a while to make that connection, actually. But yeah, I adore her. So Kimberly is the kind of new main focus of this film, and it starts with her and 3 of her friends going on a road trip. And of course there are all the signs that start to pop up. That's one thing I really love about Final Destination 2 is they stepped up the signs. Because with the second film, we already know kind of how this thing goes. We know what we're looking for, and so they really give you the signs within this first kind of opening scene. And of course, while they're driving, Kimberly has a premonition that there is a giant crash, a giant pile up, and tons of people, including herself and her friends, all die. And so she ends up being able to, of course, kind of stop the traffic and save a bunch of people, but unfortunately she still is not able to save her friends, and they still die, which I definitely think was kind of a different twist for this one. Was that you meet this group of people, you kind of think they're gonna be, the new group of friends, the new group of survivors, and 3 of the 4 of them get killed off, and all of the rest of the survivors are actually strangers. That is something that I really, really like that Final Destination 2 did, is that it's no longer this, not this group of classmates, which not all of them Alex is necessarily friends with, but you just have this whole new group of complete strangers who basically have to kind of learn to believe and trust each other, and specifically Kimberly, as she kind of has a lot more visions throughout this. We do eventually, of course, find out what happened to Alex. You find out kind of early on after the crash that he is not a survivor. They mention that Claire is the only known survivor, and then later on in the film, the police officer that was saved from the crash is doing research on the survivors of Flight 180, and you find out that Alex was in fact killed. And I will say that's one thing about this that does kind of bum me out, is the fact that I feel like we got kind of gypped on the whole Alex death. We don't get to see him die, and for me that's kind of a bummer. And I don't really know what the reasons were. I don't know if Devin Sawa just didn't want to come back for a sequel, or if they just had no intent on bringing him back. I'm not sure. I definitely feel like that's something I wish that they would have done differently. I would have really liked if they had had both Alex and Clear, if maybe Alex dies in this one and then Clear goes on and maybe continues to be part of the franchise, or they both have gotten killed off. I would have just liked to have, I guess, seen Alex's death, maybe as fucked up as that sounds, but I feel like you're following him so much through the first one. I feel like we deserved to get to see what actually happened into the second one, and I would have been okay with him being killed off in the second one. That's just something that I'm bummed that we missed to see, but you do get to find out what happened to him, and I did pause it while I was rewatching this last night, just to kind of like read more of the thing. I've kind of read it before, but so I'll prop that up so you guys can, you're probably looking at it right now, you can go ahead and read it real quick. And we do know that Claire is still alive, and she comes back to be part of this group. She is currently staying in an insane asylum for her own protection, because she's obviously the last on death list for the Flight 180 people. And I mean, I've talked in videos before about my feelings about horror films using insane asylums. For this one, I don't necessarily mind that much because it's not used as a fear factor, and to be honest, that is 100% what I would do if I was her. There are some small things about it that bother me, like she's in there for her, obviously, for her own protection, and she requests that any guests get rid of, anything that could harm her. But when you're looking at the room that she's in, there's, little surveillance things so she can see people coming, which makes sense, but that's glass. That could shatter. She's got newspaper and article clippings up on the wall with strings and pens, and I'm like, that still doesn't seem very safe. Like, I feel like there's still ways that death could get her in that room, but I mean, it still makes sense that that's what she would do. And so I don't necessarily mind her for this film, but I am glad that she is back for this one, and that she is there to help the new set of people as they try to kind of figure out Death's new design, because each film does have a different design. In the first one, the remaining survivors of Flight 180 all died in the order they're supposed to on the plane. In this one, they die in the reverse order of the way that they would have died in the crash. And so it's a matter of them, and it's still the kind of same thing, still trying to, cheat death, still trying to, again, see the signs, and if you, save someone, it skips them type thing. But, as we all know, death's gonna still try to get you. Now let's talk about the death in this one. This one has some of my favorite deaths. I love this one. I think that I wouldn't say they necessarily went harder, because the first one does still have some really great deaths, but they still did a fantastic job with the deaths in this one. And again, with the clues, like I mentioned before, they are giving you so many more clues in this one, and it's just fun to try to kind of like follow them, or kind of like figure out maybe what's going on, what's happening. The first time that you watch this, how those symbols and the premonitions are going to happen. And that's one thing, is Kimberly has more premonitions. Alex had the one of the flight, and then he would kind of see signs, but Kimberly actually has quite a few premonitions, and they actually physically affect her, which I think is an awesome added bonus for this one. So yes, I love Final Destination 2. I think it is a fantastic sequel. I think it's a nearly perfect sequel. Again, there's still some stuff in there. I would say probably my favorite thing is the way that they connected everyone from this to the victims of Flight 180. It shows you the effect of the initial survivors of Flight 180, that them getting off that plane didn't just save their lives, but affected the lives of many other people, saving them basically, and then they were supposed to die in this crash, which of course Kimberly then saved them from. And I love that it's this continued cycle of how, basically like a butterfly effect, how one event can affect thousands of other things and other people. Now let's get into my favorite death. My favorite death in this has to be Tim's. As sad as it is, because he is a child, so it's horrible, he just has the best death, in my opinion, in the film. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely a lot of great ones, some kind of, I would say necessarily comedic, but just like well-timed ones, especially that scene where they're trying to make sure Isabel gets to the hospital to have her baby, and they all kind of like crash into somebody's yard, and then 2 of them die during that time, and one new person gets saved and added to the list. I love that bit, but I definitely think Tim being crushed by that glass that is dropped is definitely my favorite. It's definitely high up there on my list for the video I did for rating the Final Destination deaths, which there will be a link to as well. So yeah, that one is definitely just has to be my favorite. So let me know what your favorite death from the second Final Destination is in the comments below. If you did enjoy this review, please do give it a big old thumbs up, and make sure that you hit that subscribe button and ring the little bell so you can be notified when I post the rest of the Final Destination videos. And I will see you guys later.